Hi, guys. Welcome to tonight's live chat. I see some of you already chatting. Ellie Wynn, you're welcome. Glad that you're feeling better from the flu. That is so hard, right? The older I get, I can't get sick because I don't rebound. You know what I mean? Like it takes me a whole month to get better. Some of that is stress too, but glad you're feeling a little bit better. You just need to keep resting and stay hydrated, But guys, it's good to see you. Everything looks good on my side. So we're going to go ahead and just jump in. Let me make sure that I put on the side here the little chat box there. I don't like that it's so little. That's one of the things that irks me is, okay, we have a chat box, but it's so small you can't see it. But at least it kind of shows you that the conversation is still carrying on because you're going to see different people scroll through. So I'm going to make sure I get that up there. Let me make sure I hit the right buttons though. Wait a minute. No, we don't want that one. Okay, there we go. We got it. Yep. I think we got it. We do. And Instagram is being nice to me tonight. Everything is okay. If there's any audio issues, guys, please let me know. Otherwise, let's go ahead and jump in. This conversation is always a conversation that takes a lot of energy to talk about because there's so many angles, and you guys will probably be able to in some way relate to this. But there's so many angles to this conversation because a family dynamic is so very difficult. Even the really good family dynamics, you could have a really loving, engaging family that is healthy and quote unquote normative or normal, and things are still challenging, right? Because life is challenging. Things come up, people change, mindsets change, behaviors happen, mental health issues happen, the list goes on. So even in those really nice families, there's still problems, right? But when you get into the psychopathic family, then things change a little bit because the foundation of a psychopathic family, I was going to say a pathological family, but I'm going to say a psychopathic family, the foundation is shaky. And what I mean by that is in a family dynamic where empathy should be taught, in a family dynamic where loving one another should be taught, in a family dynamic where there should be togetherness and honesty. In a psychopathic family, the foundation is dominance, intimidation. Empathy is not modeled, taught, or reinforced. And there's often a ton of mind games that are at the seat of a psychopathic family. Now, you may be wondering, how do all of them become psychopaths? You know what I mean? How does a group, a family, all become psychopaths? It almost seems easier, guys, to think that, okay, maybe there's a lot of, psychopaths in my area and they probably got to know each other. Some people probably think their neighbors are all psychopaths, and so it might be a little bit more acceptable or easier to conceptualize that yeah, I can have a bunch of psychopaths in my neighborhood, Bob over there, Jim over there, Kelly and Sarah. You know what I mean? And so that makes sense. It clicks. But when we start thinking about family, I'm sure you guys, many of the students I teach, or if I'm at a workshop or conference, the people that I'm teaching, and many of you guys probably already know that there's a genetic basis for psychopathic behaviors, and there's an environmental influence. So you've got genes, biology, and environment. And research in psychology suggests this about psychopathic families. You can have a father and a mother who come together and have a family, right? So your 4 siblings, so it's 5 of you as the kids. Your siblings may have seemed to be okay, but it all went downhill when they hit adolescence. It all went downhill when they hit young adulthood, and they are cold, self-centered, cruel, egotistical, manipulative, and they have this disinhibition. They're impulsive, Really, that's what I'm saying. They're impulsive and they tend to be emotionally absent. And you can kind of look at them and see it. We call that a blunted affect. A blunted affect. Let me put that in the description box for you guys. It's called a blunted affect. And that's when there is no or very little emotional reactivity, if I can speak, reactivity, meaning on their face. Okay, blunted affect is you can't read them. You can't determine if they are angry, if they are sad, if they are moved by anything that's going on around them, because their affect remains one particular way. And most psychopaths have a blunted affect. A lot of times it's hard to read them. And they often use their knowledge. We're going to get into this a little bit later. They use their knowledge because they are people smart to a certain extent. They use that knowledge against you. And if you have a psychopathic father and a psychopathic mother, and your siblings may have some traits as well, you're dealing with a whole volcano, right? So blunted affect is there is no or very little emotional reactivity or expression of emotion. That's what we mean when we say blunted affect. There's no expression of emotion whatsoever. It's this flat look, and it's hard to read that. If you have a family dynamic where mom and dad is a psychopath, and we're going to break down actually what that is in a minute, but mom and dad are psychopaths, your siblings have traits, and you're kind of the only one in the family dynamic that doesn't seem to lean that way with everybody else. You lean more towards the empathic side of life. It's going to be really hard for you to exist in that environment, because one of the things that characterizes a psychopathic family dynamic is something that we call callous unemotional traits. And most therapists are well aware of this. If you're talking about a psychopath, you're talking about a person who on the inside, they are callous, they are cold, they are unemotional. And it's a series of personality traits that makes them this way. It's not like they just, told themselves, I'm going to act this way today. It's not like they are moody, irritable, or, for lack of a clinical term, cranky and on edge. That's not it. It's not that they've gone through so much trauma in all cases, that they've gone through so much trauma that now they're angry, mad, and, disregarding of others' feelings and their thoughts. It's not that. They are born predisposed to become this way. So remember that genetic and biological component. Usually, and this is interesting because some of the research focuses on this as well. Usually we can do, twin studies or sibling studies or family studies, and we can find similar personality traits and mentalities within the family. When it comes to psychopathic family dynamics, oftentimes the infant that is born into the family during infancy, there are some clues and signs that an individual is going to become a problematic individual. I'm not going to say a psychopath because it gets a little bit tricky, but I will say most of the research points to the fact that infants tend to be, more colicky, they cry more, they're more cranky and agitated, they didn't sleep well, they seem to be underwhelmed sometimes by things, or easily overwhelmed and impulsive. These kind of infants also have some attachment issues. So we can call them attachment deficits, where they haven't quite attached to mom and dad very well. And that can be found in their insecure attachment, their, kind of disorganized attachment. They don't seem to trust very well. They don't seem to be emotionally responsive to the parent. There's no what we call emotional attunement between child and mom. So let me put this in the chat box: emotional attunement. And really what that means is it's a joint experience that is emotional. Okay. It's a joint experience that is emotional. Emotional attunement says this: my baby, 1-year-old baby, is sitting there in front of the TV watching cartoons, and something sad comes on, like a commercial. and the baby starts crying. I am not going to sit over on the couch, for example, and watch my child cry and not get up and respond. Because now I want to get up off the couch. I want to walk over to the child and I want to ask, what's the matter? Then you're going to pick the baby up, right? Isn't this kind of like the normal sense that you get? You pick the baby up, right? Put them on your hip. You're patting them, right? Right. Then you look at them and you talk, right? Emotional attunement. Child and parent as one. And a psychopathic dynamic doesn't exist. So what happens in a psychopathic dynamic? Mom's on the couch. So let's reenact this. Mom is on the couch. Baby starts crying. What does mom do? Cross her leg, keep reading her magazine. Get up and do something in the kitchen. Respond in a mean, callous, cold way. Shut up all that crying over there. I'm not in the mood for this. Right? Happens all the time in psychopathic family dynamics. It is a very callous, cold, unemotional way that they engage with their family. What does that do to the child? Here's where genes and environment comes in. Because now this is a child that is disturbed by something, right? In the environment. The child is watching television, saw something sad, and it caused him to cry. So psychopathic mother is going to stay seated on the couch, yell something over at the baby, or cross her leg and keep reading her magazine. What signal does that send to a child? That mom doesn't care. She's not emotionally attuned to me. We're not connected. She is callous and selfish. She's egotistical or egocentric, I should probably say, meaning that she's all about her space and herself, right? She's inappropriate. She's not a mother. She's not comforting. She's not engaging. She doesn't know how to come over and console. That's a problem. You know, some parents, especially in my area of study where I specialize in treating children, teens, and families, I've heard some parents say, I'm just not the lovey-dovey type. I'm just not the kind of parent that, she can hang off of me and keep hugging me. And I'm not that kind of a parent. Okay. There's a boundary to that though. And sometimes, those parents that are not touchy-feely, they're actually psychopathic because they are callous, cold, and unemotional. They don't stretch themselves to become available to their family. They are basically what we call covert psychopaths. Now, these are probably new terms, guys. I'm going to put it in the chat box for you, okay, just so you have it. A covert psychopath is an individual who basically masks everything that's cold and unemotional on the inside. So a covert psychopath masks who they really are. It's covert, right? Overt psychopaths, if I can get this in here. What are overt psychopaths? Those are the ones who are very obvious in their goals. They're very obvious. I don't care. I'm not getting up off this couch. I'm watching my television show or I'm reading my magazine. You stop all that crying over there because I'm not going to get up to help you. And I really don't care. Overt psychopath. That they kind of have this attitude towards the world of, so be it, but I'm comfortable. I don't really care what happens to you, right? You can kind of catch them a little bit easier than you can those covert psychopaths who appear to be one way on the outside and inwardly they are like wolves, right? So overt psychopaths, you can observe their goal. You can. You know what they're after. You know what they're thinking probably. It's on their face. Sometimes they talk in a way that is cold, callous, and unemotional, and it gives you all the clues that you need that this person is not okay. Let me also mention, guys, in this category of just me breaking down the conversation tonight, research suggests this, that in a psychopathic family dynamic where both parents are cold, callous, and unemotional, They have a disregard for the rights of others. They don't seem to be very loving and attached to their children, adolescents, or adult children. They are very much emotionally detached parents, right? The research that breaks this dynamic down has identified that a particular set of characteristics is often found with psychopathic families, and that is cluster B personality disorders. Now, cluster B, for those of you who are not aware, that is the unemotional or very emotional, very emotional, very dramatic, very reactive, impulsive. I was going to say slightly impulsive, but no, impulsive, reactive category of personality disorder. So we're talking antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality. We're also talking narcissistic personality and histrionic personality. These personality traits are often embedded in a psychopathic family, and it appears across generations. So it's not like grandma had a borderline personality disorder and her mother was a psychopath. It was great Nancy, great Aunt Nancy, who had borderline personality disorder and married a man that was a psychopath. And because they came together in a union and brought children into the world, now Aunt Susu and Uncle Bibi have issues. For those of you who like her and him, or know who they are, they now have issues because mom had borderline personality, dad was a psychopath. And so then what happens? Well, Aunt Susu takes on the psychopathic dynamic in her own life, and Uncle Bibi becomes a psychopath himself. So what happens in that generation? Well, they find people, they have a family with those people, and guess what they do? It then passes down to the next generation. So cluster B personality traits in a psychopathic dynamic makes a whole lot of sense, because if it's a generational thing, you're going to have a lot of generations before and after you that may have passed on these cold, callous, unemotional traits biologically and environmentally, I should say. And that's a really scary thing. To break down callous, unemotional traits, let's just say that they are shallow or blunted emotions. Remember, I said blunted is there's no expression. You can't really tell what's going on inside of the person, right? There's a flat or detached kind of an affect. So their face is always one way, and they either look disinterested or detached, right? Or again, they are flat or blunted in how they present their face to the world. Even when they should be smiling, you're not going to see it. Even when they should be crying, you're probably not going to see it. They keep a stern face at all times. And that isn't intentionally. For those of you who may have the question of, well, is that intentional? No. It's a part of the psychopathic dynamic. And that's the scary part. It's not like you can just pull somebody out of that psychopathic dynamic untouched, because as you're going to see throughout the rest of the live chat tonight, you're not just one vessel in that entire dynamic that's going to come out of there unscathed, because you're going to get hit somewhere in this kind of a dynamic. And I see it all the time. And that's the scary and sad part. You're either going to have low self-esteem, distorted reality, fear of relationships, attachment problems, depression, anxiety, fear, right? Delusions and hallucinations. I mean, there's a ton of research that supports it's going to be hard for that one person who doesn't fit that psychopathic dynamic. It's going to be hard for them to come out of that untouched. So something's going to harm you in that dynamic in some way. But callous unemotional traits, again, we talked about it, right? It's shallow affect, blunted affect. There's this facial expression that they can never really share with us, so we don't quite know where they are. But there's also something called systematic psychopathy. So let me put this in here. Systematic psychopathy. Those of you who watched my Tuesday video, I kind of broke this down a little bit, but I'm giving you a little bit more meat in the live chat tonight. Okay, so you're gonna be familiar with some of these terms if you watch my video. But systematic psychopathy, what is that? Well, some research suggests this, guys, that if you have a family that operates like a system. You know, I gave the analogy last week. Underneath the hood of a car, you lift the hood up, right? You put that little, what do you call that thing? What is it? Like an arm. And your hood is up, right? You look at the design of the entire system, right? Okay, there's the engine, there's the water fluid, there's the motor oil, the transmission oil, there's that, there's this. And everything under the hood of that vehicle is working together to make the car run, right? And if the engine shuts down, transmission's not going to matter, right? You can put oil in for days. It's not going to matter. Window washer fluid could be in there, but what the heck is it, doing to help the situation? A family system is the same exact way. But who collapses in that dynamic? Who is the engine that totally gives out? It typically is the parents, and they can't uphold a particular standard within the family, including safety in the family, emotional safety, psychological safety within the family, because they are unstable. Does that make sense? So that whole system under the hood of the car goes down as soon as the motor does, right? And none of the other parts make any sense. And the same thing happens in a family dynamic. The other piece to this analogy is this, that under the hood of a car, you see that everything is working cohesively together. And without that cohesiveness, it's not a system, right? And so in a psychopathic family, if you're coming from the systematic perception that family operates like a system, family is a system, family is under the hood of a car and how that operates, right? If you see that family is a system, everybody in that psychopathic dynamic is going to add something to the family dynamic, and it's going to be embedded. Think of how a tick is embedded into the skin or into the fur of an animal, of a dog, so to speak, right? The embeddedness means we're going under the surface. And so psychopaths or psychopathy operates in the same exact way. You have a wayward system. It's shut down. It doesn't operate. It's unhealthy, right? It's not good. It is contributing to the dynamic, which then becomes embedded within the system of the family. And that is a scary reality, because then everybody becomes psychopathic in that dynamic. You may have come out untouched, if you are one of the lucky ones, if you will. You may not have depression or suicidal thoughts or anger, resentment. You may not have any of that. So maybe you came out untouched. If you do have some challenges as a result, it makes a lot of sense, because the psychopathy has been embedded within the fabric of the family, the system of the family, and it's hard to get rid of it. High conflict individuals also tend to create psychopathic families. You guys who have been with me for a while, you know that I talk about high conflict personalities, or people who like to fight all the time. There's never any peace in them. The same is true in a psychopathic family. If you have a high conflict individual who leads that family, so your mom, your dad were both high conflict individuals. There was domestic violence. There was anger and resentment between them. You could see that all they did was yell and scream and curse at each other and disrespect each other. And that is what you grew up under. Mom and dad are the leaders of the family, whether they want to or not, whether they can be or not. That is their position. They created children. Unfortunately, when you have two high conflict parents who are extraordinarily immature and damaging, you are going to get a dynamic that struggles with cluster B personalities, right? So borderline personality, narcissism, histrionic personality, where the individual is very theatrical and shallow, dramatic, loud, boisterous. You're going to deal with that. But you're also going to see dark triad traits. And so we're talking narcissism. We're talking sociopaths or sociopathy. And guys, you remember this, right? Machiavellianism. It's that internal, joy and happiness that a dark person has when they have done something sneaky, undercurrent, manipulative, triangulating to another person. And that makes them feel like they have kind of gotten like this one leg up on you, so to speak. And so this dynamic is also problematic. High conflict parents, a system where there's a lot of cluster B issues. And then you also have Machiavellianism thrown into the mix. Oh, so now you're kind of sadistic. And that is not a good thing either within the family dynamic. I'm going to introduce one more term before I go to the chat box. And this term is called collective enablement. Collective enablement. Now, I know you're sitting there like, oh, geez, what the heck does that even mean? Right? Sometimes my brothers are like that with me too. I'll throw out a term or something just to get on their nerves. And my younger sibling, my younger brother, he just looks at me like, what the heck is wrong with you? I couldn't he said to me the other day, I couldn't keep up with all that stuff. Maybe that's why you're so tired. You have all that stuff in your brain, but bear with me. I'm going to break this down. Okay. So collective enablement. Have you ever been in your family and you recognize that somebody else is harming you? So somebody else is intentionally trying to harm you. Somebody else is intentionally doing something to slow you down, manipulate you, put you in a triangle, keep you feeling less than, the list goes on. And you go to your mom or dad, or you go to your sibling and you say, you know what? Uncle Kev over there is yelling and screaming and intimidating me, and he's not letting me just show him that I can be reliable. He's rude and he's mean, and I don't like it. Mom and dad or your sibling looks at you and says, it's probably your fault. You may say, excuse me? Your sister says, it's probably your fault. And you may stand there in shock that they would turn around the situation onto you. You're the problem. You may come back at them and say, well, that's not very nice to say. How am I the problem? Uncle Kev's been around here for 75 years. He can handle himself. He's just rude, mean, and irritable. And your dad may pitch in and say, yeah, but so are you. And boom, there you go, slapped in the face again. Here comes mom. Well, you know your father's right. You have a terrible disposition. When you were 12 years old, you did this. And when you were 12 and you acted this way, we kept you grounded for 6 months. You may say, that has nothing to do with this. Your sister jumps in and says, yes, it does. What's happening to you there? Can you guys identify that? What's happening to you there? One way to define that is collective enablement. And it is we collectively as a group in this family enable each other. So we are enabling the psychopathic cold, callous dynamic to continue. And that means you're the oddball out or the odd one out. And we are in this dynamic together, mom, dad, sibling. And in this dynamic, we are enabling the psychopathic traits through how we talk, feel, behave, and target you. Does that make sense, guys? It's sad, right? So let me put the definition here. Collective enablement. So I'm going to break this down and just say everyone in the psychopathic dynamic encourages Psychopathy. I see you. I may have spelled that wrong. I'm so sorry, guys. I see you. I'm trying to get her before she leaves. There you are. Because when you guys comment, my sidebar shifts. That's what I meant. Sambuca Speaks. I hope I got that correct. Hello and welcome, my friend. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. She says, oh my God, this is my family. Yes. Yes. And I'm so sorry to hear that, because it is damaging, right? When you are in that family dynamic and you've got collective enablement happening right in front of your eyes, and you don't know how to just say, hear me. Can you just hear me? That's not easy to do. And I've been in sessions where this has happened with families. And I just feel terrible for my client who thought that she or he was going to be able to incorporate mom, dad, and sibling into a session to have a conversation. And it turns out to be collective enablement of the psychopathic behaviors in the family. That is a scary place to be, right? And it's very sad. It's depressing. I'm also going to highlight a European geisha. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. It's good to see you and welcome to the chat. I don't remember seeing you before. A European geisha says, the normal one is the odd one out. Now, I can agree with that because there is some research that suggests that in a psychopathic dynamic, there may be one person who emerges out of that dynamic who is not as afflicted by the psychopathic behavior in the family as some of the other ones. Does that make sense? So like you may emerge okay, or you may emerge untouched, period. You may be just fine. And that's a miracle if you ask me. That's a miracle. Okay, let's keep moving, guys. Yeah. Courtney Frazier, I know that's you. It says Pooh Bear 0320, but I know this is Courtney Frazier. It's good to see you. Welcome back tonight. Hope you're doing well. Courtney Frazier says that feels like what I went through growing up. Absolutely. Collective enablement. And what's interesting is collective enablement can actually be weaponized. You know what I mean by that? So the dynamic between mom, dad, and daughter in the scenario that I just gave you, they can weaponize their collaborative, disposition. And they can decide to come against you at all times, right? And, it's so sad because what happens in this dynamic is you get that one person in the family who's not as sucked into the dynamic. And it may be you. So I'll use you as an example. You may be the only one who has emerged from that very, very dysfunctional dynamic untouched. And you can see, like you have on binoculars, you can see what is truth, what is fiction, what is hidden, what is happening that shouldn't be happening. But the collective group that you left behind, mom, dad, and sibling, they weaponize their collectiveness and they use it against you. And they use it against you in a way that says, we're together. We're over here, Salvador Minuchin, he was a family psychologist, I should say he provided family psychotherapy. I'll put it that way. But he was also a researcher. He's also a pioneer in the field of family therapy, excuse me. And one of the things that he highlighted is that in a dynamic where certain family members cling to each other, you're over there, they're all over here in a collective enablement, in a collective space. What he has highlighted in his work is we would also call that an alliance and a coalition. I'm going to put that in the chat box. An alliance and a coalition. And that's when people over in this area who are collective and together and holding each other's hands and singing Kumbaya and encouraging each other's evil, right? They're over here keeping you way over there. And it's intentional, it's dominating, it's intimidating, and it's damaging, you know, because there you are way over there and they're over here, you know, like a bunch of demons herding together against you. And that is such a scary reality, right? Because sometimes when you look at family, you just want to say, my family loves me. You know, we're going to be okay. We have some shaky times, but we're going to be okay. Not always. When you're coming from a psychopathic family dynamic, you have to keep in mind, or at least keep your eyes open to the reality that there's callous, unemotional traits at the seat of who they are. And empathy is not modeled. It is not enforced, reinforced, and it oftentimes isn't taught, because you can't really teach empathy in the first place. But you can teach kids, right? You can show children how to be loving. You know, go hug grandma over there. You know, I've had babies in my family where, you know, I'm just lovey-dovey with them and kissing their cute little cheeks and hugging them. And what am I doing? I'm modeling. Even in that moment of holding that child and showing them love and affection, I'm modeling. And that does not happen in psychopathic family dynamics. All right, guys, I'm going to go to the chat box here, engage you just a little bit. After that, we're going to come back to the content. I want to give you those specific personality and behavioral problems that could be happening right in your family that can help you identify a psychopathic family dynamic. So you're going to want to stick around for that. The other thing is I want to give you some information on what's actually happening in these toxic family dynamics where there are psychopaths. Everybody in the family seems to have a psychopathic trait. So I'm going to highlight what's happening there. What does the field and what does research say about it? And then at the end, I'm going to highlight the impact on you, because there has to have been some kind of impact if you feel you've come from a family like this. All right, guys. All right, let me go to the chat box. This is CS8821. Hello, my friend. It's good to see you. Welcome to tonight's live chat. CS8821 says, oh my God, yes. I also go through the same thing with my toxic mom and brother. They would never watch any of your videos, by the way. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I can give you some reasons why. You probably have some reasons why for me, but I think we're on the same page. No, they would not. They would not watch my videos. It's too revealing. It is too much centered on highlighting what they do in the dark, right? And it will cause them to have to look at themselves. And the number one thing the psychopaths don't like to do is look at themselves. They don't want to see it. Nope, that's not what's happening. Nope, don't shine that light in my face and say that I'm A, B, and C, because I'm not. They have a version of themselves embedded in their mind. Does that make sense? They have a version of themselves that's embedded in their mind. And if I had never worked in the criminal justice system and juvenile justice system many years ago as a therapist, I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know that. Being in front of inmates, sometimes even prison guards, sometimes even police, FBI agents, attorneys, you know, anybody involved in law, I've at least sat with, talked with, worked with, the list goes on. They have some element of psychopathic traits, you know, and they can be very in denial as to who they really are. And other times they can know who they are and they don't see a problem with it, you know? So most people who are psychopathic or in a psychopathic family dynamic, they're not going to want to watch my live chats or my videos because again, you know, it's too revealing. It's too revealing. Erica, 14332. Hello and welcome to you. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. Lady Sarita, hello, my friend. Good to see you. Thank you so much for keeping tabs on the audience. The audience numbers. I appreciate you for that. Rainbow Iris 11. Hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Welcome to the channel. The Jupiter sound, I was talking to you a little bit before the live chat. It's good to see you here. Welcome to tonight's live chat. The Juniper sound says people raised in psychopathic family systems often avoid conflict because growing up, any disagreement meant danger 100%. That's such a wise thing that you just brought up. They learn to keep the peace to stay safe, and that pattern can follow them. Yes. And that pattern sometimes is what we call, I'm going to put in the chat box for you, the lost child family role. And I talked about this last week. The lost child family role. Last week, when I brought up family roles, I highlighted that the lost child tends to be that family member who is the youngest, oftentimes the youngest sibling. They go into the corners of the world and hide, or they bury themselves in video games, music, artistic expression, rapping, dance, poetry, the list goes on. They embed themselves in another area that causes them to, that allows them, not causes, I'm going to reword that. It allows them to embed themselves into something else besides the family chaos and drama. So it's a lot easier to play a video game. It's a lot easier to listen to music. It's a lot easier to pretend and fantasize and be whatever I want to be in the safe corners of my world than it is to be a part of this psychopathic, unstable, toxic family dynamic. Right? And so the lost child role is often found in psychopathic families. They don't want to be a part of that psychotic, unstable dynamic. And the only way that they know how to escape, very much what you said, the Jupiter sound, the only way that they know how to escape is to cling on to something else and stay over there. And the lost child ends up becoming this individual that doesn't really know who they are, doesn't really know what they want, seems a little bit behind developmentally. Chronologically, they're 30. Psychologically, they're 12, and that's a very, very sad position to be in, right? I've seen it all too much. It's very, very, very sad. Aco Life, hello, my friend. It's good to see you back tonight. Hope you're doing okay. Thank you so much. I'm trying to think of your other screen name. It's MNL Odell. It's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back tonight. Oh, I hate these screen names changing. Oh, geez. But I know it's you, MNL Odell. Fairy Girl, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back tonight. Welcome back. Thank you for being a mom of the group. She's giving Ellie Wen some tips. Excuse me, guys. Love that. Thank you for that, Fairy Girl. James McDonald. Hello, it's good to see you tonight. James McDonald says, the downside of having empathy means that you are able to absorb everyone's energy and take it on as your own, unless you have the awareness to differentiate between what is yours or not. Yeah, very much agree with that. As a therapist, I have the ability to differentiate what is and what is not for me. But there are some therapists, my coworkers, people that I've known for many years in the field. Sometimes that can get murky, just the experience of being empathic, because sometimes you may not feel it right away. I'm that kind of a person. I'll take on the pressures of my client and I don't feel it right away. It's probably going to take me about 6 months before it clicks that, oh my God, I haven't been sleeping. Oh my God, I'm gaining weight. Oh my God, what is happening? You know what I mean? And then some people know right away. So it really just depends. But you're very much right, James McDonald. We would call that compassion fatigue. And I think just about anybody can experience compassion fatigue. But if you are dealing as a therapist with psychopathic families, psychopathic parents, kids who are psychopathic or developing into psychopaths, it can drain you so much that you become weary of caring. You become weary of putting your all to fix this and to help the family get better, and nothing really happens. And so you just kind of crash. So yes, I very much agree with your comment. That's awesome. Ooh, this is a hard one. Otis, I'm going to say Otis 00001. I think I got that right. Hello, welcome to the channel. It's good to have you tonight. Otis says it's funny when they lie and you know they're lying, and they end up giving you information about Alzheimer's because you try to tell them what they just said and end up saying they never said that thing. Oh my God. I know this is your personal dynamic, isn't it? Let me just say that psychopaths are really good liars. So, not all, but most, right? So, if you're trying to consider what's a psychopath, what's a sociopath, what's a narcissist, it's going to be a little bit difficult, okay? Because sociopathy and psychopathy are different things. A person who is a sociopath may not kill. They don't have the capacity to. They may not be as suave and charming and engaging. They may be a little bit clumsy in the things that they do. You know, they may lie, but then smile and laugh while they're lying, which gives away that they're lying. Or they may lie, cover it up, and forget that, oh my God, that clue back there, I should have hid that as well. You know, so sociopaths tend to be those antisocial personalities. You know something's off about them, but you can't put your finger on it. They tend to be very gory and manipulative and socially behind in some ways, but calculating, manipulative, triangulating. They tend to appear as if they've got it together, you know, when the reality is no, not quite. Because then here comes the psychopath, and the psychopath is the one who is your Jeffrey Dahmers, okay, your Charles Mansons. And those individuals tend to be, and I hate to say this, but it is true, and research has focused on this in the past, they tend to be sexually appealing to other people. You know how many letters Jeffrey Dahmer got after he raped, murdered, then raped, maimed, and stuffed into his own refrigerator and freezer their bodies, right? It's so gory, right? He got so many love letters, so many gifts, so much money given to him, you know, and it's despicable. But there are women who are that shallow that feel like, you know what, I don't care what you did. You're attractive, you know, and it doesn't click in their head that maybe something's wrong with you. So most of the women that followed Jeffrey Dahmer, they sent him all kind of things. Charles Manson, the same thing. And even in our modern day, you know, psychopaths that are in the news, if you look up the information or you look at research, you will find that a lot of these murderers and harmful individuals, they are looked up to. You know, they are very much looked up to. So it's a very, very sad reality. All right, let's keep moving, guys. Actually, because we have a lot to get to before we wrap up in a little bit here. Actually, Jovial, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back. Actually, Jovial says, I love that you use the term afflicted because they are victims too, even if only to their own devices or behavior. Yeah, I mean, if you want to look at it like that, not always. Psychopaths, if you look at it in a bigger sense, maybe they are victims, right? Because they are taking their own life in a sense when they murder, when they rape, when they kill, when they do psychopathic things in society. When a family is psychopathic, there's no love and affection. Things tend to be very rocky and unstable, possibly done for show at all times. So they are missing out on life. I can see it from that perspective. But, you know, to be very blunt, I don't feel sorry for most of them because psychopaths tend to be self-centered, cold, lacking in empathy, unemotional individuals who are only there to serve themselves, right? That charity they donated to over there, it serves them. How? Because people in the community are going to see me, right? I go to church every Sunday. Why? Because the pastor needs to know that I am deep and spiritual. And I want all the congregants to see how I look in my Sunday best outfit, right? Another example of a psychopathic kind of family dynamic would be all of our kids are going to dress a certain way and go to private schools. Even though dad never hugs the kids, mom could care less about the children. She just wants to make her 5 children look prim, proper, collected, and wonderful for the world, right? So if you think about it from that angle, then you say, okay, never mind. There's nothing for me to really feel sorry about here, because they're actually very, very detrimental to the children they have, to society, to the future, the generations that are coming after them. It's really sad, but I totally get your point. Actually, Jovio, you can feel sorry for them in some respects, but keep in mind, most psychopaths you're not supposed to feel sorry for. They have an irreversible problem. It is sometimes very easy for a specific approach to be used with them, especially by somebody who's not me, who is an expert at treating psychopaths. I don't treat psychopaths, so I would know. I know a little bit, but I wouldn't know a lot about what are those steps to treat them, right? But a lot of the time, their behaviors and attitudes are irreversible. They're going to be that way. That's just who they are. Elizabeth, it's good to see you. Thank you for saying that, because I didn't know who you were. I'm like, wait a minute. Who is this? Yeah, I know. I believe you. I'm still working. I'm trying to figure it out, guys. Just know I'm trying to figure it out. I don't get it either. So I'm trying. Bear with me, okay, guys? Tammy Nicely, it's good to see you. Welcome back. Hope you're doing okay. Tammy Nicely says, Tamara, is the scapegoat the untouched? No. And here's why. Because if you are in the role of a scapegoat, right, then they've already talked about you. They've already talked against you. They've already created a dynamic where you are going to sink if you don't get out, right? Like the family and their collective enabling of each other to go against you has already afflicted you, has already caused you to feel a certain way about you, and has already tainted the perception of various other people against you. So that would definitely not be untouched. I would consider untouched being, I've had a little bit of anxiety, I've had a little bit of depression coming out of this dynamic, but I have now graduated to professor of psychology at the University of Australia. And I'm now doing studies on psychopathic families and how they behave. And I'm bringing all my research to the States and to Australia. That would be one awesome example of being untouched. Another example, I graduated high school, I went to school, I moved out, and I've gone no contact. That would be another untouched. Another example, the last example would be, I have some issues that I work on in therapy every week, but I lead a fairly stable life and I'm okay. That would be examples of untouched at different levels. So that's what I would say, Tammy Nicely. Captain Commenter, it's always good to see you. Welcome back. I know, right? Thank you so much for that. That's so humbling. And I agree with that. I agree. Lil Johan, I know that you with that odd screen name. It's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back. Let me turn my heat off, guys. Give me 1 second. You know how this goes. Every live chat, I either don't have water or my heat's up to high blast. Something goes wrong. I don't have paper. I swear I have ADHD. It's just undiagnosed. All right, guys, let's keep moving. Real B303. Hello, my friend. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Real B says, you may escape, grow up, and be stronger and wiser, able to spot this type of energy in others. It's like a curse that turns into a gift. That is such an eloquent way to put that. And I'm going to star your comment in the chat box. I very, very much agree with that. Very, very much agree with that. Gary Bennett, it's good to see you. Welcome back. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, a lot of people on the channel love this topic of psychopathic families, individuals. It's such a deep dive, you know what I mean? Because you really do have to remove the shallow lens from your eyes and look a lot deeper. And it's depressing at the end, but I like it too. I have to admit, I do. Dr. Right Life, I know that's you and that screen name. It's good to see you. Welcome back tonight. I'm just going to put your comment on the screen. So people can see it. Dennis Prolox. I know that's not right. I'm just going to say Dennis. Dennis, welcome to tonight's live chat. It's good to see you back. Dennis says, I've had office dynamic that resembles collect. All right, I'm going to reword that, guys. Dennis is saying that he has had a dynamic at work that resembles the collective enablement. It was unbelievable. Yeah, it is. It's unbelievable. It is toxic. It is overwhelming. It is demeaning, right? I hate it. I hate it so much. People just, bind together like a coalition or a group of groupies, and they go against you, and then they enable each other to be a certain way towards you. It's so depressing, right? Honeybee, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back. Honeybee says, collective enablement has killed my spirit. Feels like bondage. Is there hope for solution? There is. Much gratitude to you, Tamara. Thank you so much for that. And is there hope? Yes. A lot of times you have to be able, I'm going to give you one insight that may be helpful. You have to be able to, in some way, build some distance between the psychopathic family and you, right? You've got to build some distance between the psychopathic family and you. The distance allows for you to clear your mind, feel things in your heart that's different, have a spiritual or soul supporting experience that can wake you up, give you a new hope, change your mind. You have to also intentionally unskew. That's the new word for tonight, guys, unskew. But you know what I'm saying? You have to undo and kind of rewire how you think, so that you can build that distance between you and that psychopathic family. Once you build that distance between you and that psychopathic family, that's where the hope begins. Because they've crowded your thinking, they've crowded your heart, they've crowded how you see yourself and how you relate in the world to other people. So building that distance between you and that psychopathic family is actually where the hope begins, because then you can start to kind of tear down some of those things your family may have done to you and rebuild into you. And you can only do that when you're outside of that dynamic, That's a sad reality, but that's really the honest truth in terms of healing, Matuno, welcome. It's good to see you. I remember you. Okay, thank you for doing that, guys. That helps me out a lot. Good to see you. Welcome back tonight. Mentuno says, or Oslo. Oh, I thought that was your screen name. Okay, I totally messed this whole person's comment up. Mentuno, I'm going to take that you are a new person on the channel. So welcome to the channel. It's good to see you. Mentuno says, scapegoating. Is that the same? You have to remind me of what I said, because I don't remember. I'm so sorry. Scapegoating, I'll put it this way. Anything that relates to a psychopathic family and scapegoating, it's all entwined. I can do it that way. But if somebody reminds me of what was said, or you bring it back up again, then I can confirm whether it is or not. But if I brought up psychopathic family dynamic and scapegoating, all of it is entwined. That may answer your question. These names are throwing me off, guys, and it's not your fault. Laura Fit, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back tonight. Angela, I don't know if I welcomed you. It's good to see you. Welcome back. Yep, jealousy and envy is a dynamic as well within these psychopathic families. All right, one last comment. We're going to get back into the content, guys. Captain Commenter says, my dad gets joy from the suffering of others. Is that psychopathic or Machiavellian? That's such a great question. It's Machiavellianism. Now, being a psychopath says, I can be gory. I can watch things that are dark and evil and have an overtone of just Satanism and darkness and just evil, right? Psychopaths can be interested in that. But when a person becomes emotionally and psychologically stimulated by the downfall of other people, now we're talking about a Machiavellian kind of a personality trait. They're content in seeing other people fail, hurt, right? A person who has a Machiavellian personality trait, they can walk past the homeless and talk really bad about them, turn around and, smirk at them and laugh at them and say a couple of mean things to them, and then still be able to go home, eat dinner, get a nice warm bath in their warm bathtub, and jump into their bed with all their warm blankets and pillows. And life is great for them. But they got some pleasure out of talking down to the homeless person on the street. So very good question, Captain Commenter. All right, guys, let's get back into the content. What are some of the challenges within the family dynamic? What highlights that you are in a psychopathic family dynamic? I mean, we can go on and on and on for hours, but I've broken them down into a few things. So the first thing that you want to keep in mind, number one, is normalization of coldness, callousness, unemotional traits, attitudes, dispositions. It is encouraged. Remember, I said earlier, empathy is not modeled. It's not encouraged. It's not reinforced. So the number one thing that categorizes a psychopathic family is normalization of coldness and callousness. The other thing is parents might have a very similar personality profile. So I'm going to put that in here. Parents typically have a very similar personality profile. What does that mean? Parents are psychopaths, and now they're raising psychopaths. And they tend to have a very similar personality profile to their parents, who are also psychopaths. And they also have a similar personality profile to the children that they were bringing up into the family. So similar personality profiles, that's often a part of this dynamic. Group aggression, we just talked about it, collective enablement, but we can also call it group aggression. What happens with group aggression? Well, dad starts getting upset with me because I didn't go to the family reunion because I couldn't go. Something traumatic happened to me. Or I don't want to see Aunt Susu because she's a troublemaker and a gossiper, right? So you stay away. What does dad do? Dad gets upset. Then he tells your mom, who then gets upset with you as well. And then your mom talks to your brother, who calls you and says, how dare you? And so what's happening in that dynamic? What's happening in that dynamic is group aggression. And so now there's passive aggressive behavior. There's anger. There's hostility under the surface, and you can feel that. They didn't invite you to Thanksgiving. So they obviously are upset with you. Right? And so that is group aggression. It happens in a collective way, There's also low emotional warmth, which also can be tied to low empathy. So consider being a child to your psychopathic parent who doesn't hug you, who doesn't reinforce things to you, doesn't, teach you the things that you should know, doesn't want you to make it in the world, just kind of seems like they want you to struggle and find your own way and get out of their hair, right? So we also have that. There's also this harshness and this emotional absence that exists with these parents, you know? Remember at the beginning of the chat, I said, you know, a psychopathic mother sitting on the couch, the baby is crying because something disturbed him, but she crosses her leg and says, oh, shut up all that crying over there, right? Think about shaken baby syndrome. Think of that. Can you imagine? Can you fathom taking the most precious thing that life has given us, that God has given us, and he's, you know, so delicate, so sweet, and so pure? How do you shake a child so delicate and then expect not to be punished, right? And so when you look at it from that angle, you know, it's a very dysfunctional and scary dynamic, because the coldness is there in order for them to shake a child, right? Shake a child so much that they end up with a brain tumor, injury, lacerations, or they end up dead because you've now shook this baby and you've created brain damage. So there's a certain amount of callousness that's breaded. Can I say that? Within them. It's on the inside. They are harsh. And that's just who they are. They tend to have this disinhibited and impulsive behavioral style. Nothing holds them back. They're just out there, loud, calculating, manipulative, triangulating, competitive, shallow and vain. Everything is about how wonderful I look, you know? They can't get their mind to come from small to big, because most psychopaths have an edge of immaturity, and they're lying to you and they're also lying to themselves. And that's the sad reality. Most of the times that's why they end up behind bars or they end up caught, because they lie to themselves. They think they're smarter. They think they're bigger. They think they're powerful, right? And the sad reality is no, they're not. Jeffrey Dahmer served how many years? Charles Manson, James Holmes, Adam Lanza killed himself. But, you know, these kind of individuals, they don't get away from the law, even though they think they're so very intelligent, you know? They have this false image of normal within the family dynamic, this false image of normal. You know, the psychopathic mother tells the psychopathic father in the dynamic, we have to look good to the outside world because you're running for the Senate next week. And we have to make sure that we look great, right? Bent towards showing, not telling, more so showing. I want you to think with your eyes. Look at me and see that we are wonderful, when the reality is no, it's not. Under the surface, remember covert psychopathy? Under the surface, there's a lot of issues and they are being masked. There's shallow affect. There's dominant personality traits here. A psychopath tends to be rather dominating in some respects, you know, and in a family dynamic, that dominating psychopath is probably dad, or that dominating psychopath is probably the oldest sibling, you know. You feel like in these dynamics, you may feel like there's conversational traps. You guys know what that is? Conversational traps. What is that? It's really the experience of feeling trapped in everything that you say. Everything that you say feels like a trap. You know, dad comes home, picks up the phone, calls you, you're at work, dating somebody new, having a wonderful life. Dad calls you, you don't answer. Dad rings you again, you don't answer. You're busy. You have a life. Dad texts you, you don't see the text because you left your phone in the car and you're in the store shopping. Mom calls you, and then by the time you get to the car, you have about 15, 20 messages and you don't know what's going on. and you're a little bit confused as to what the emergency is. You finally get in the car, start your car, pull off, and start driving. You call dad back, right? You call dad back. Dad picks up. Oh, hi there. Where were you? We were trying to find you. Oh, I'm so sorry. I see that mom called me. You called me. I was in the store. I left my phone in the car. I was supposed to be right back, but it was a long line. And your father may say, oh, so you were in a store. You don't think it's wise to take your phone with you? You may say, well, sometimes I do, but I didn't feel like I needed it going into the store. Why didn't you feel like you needed it? Then you got to explain that. So then you explain why I didn't think I would need it because the line looked short. But then by the time I got what I needed and got to the line, it was already a long line. That makes no sense. I don't even know if I believe you. And you may say, why not, Dad? I'm telling you the truth. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. You know what? As a matter of fact, I was calling to see if I can sign the car loan over to you. So I'm going to need you to meet me at this place tomorrow or Sunday, right? What happened in that conversation? It was like Dad was ferocious and hostile, right? And she kind of talked her way into a variety of traps with him. And it's not anything that she did wrong. It's not anything that you do wrong. It's the simple fact that, and the reality that a psychopath almost always makes you feel like whatever you say, you have to censor it. You have to make sure that you're saying the truth and not half of the truth, right? Because they're going to pick bits and pieces out of your conversation and string together a narrative that doesn't belong to you. And so that's kind of scary too, right, guys? So you may find in this family dynamic, there's conversational traps. There may also be, there was one more that I wanted to bring to mind and I can't remember it. No. There's two more. One is wrongdoing. Okay, they tend to minimize that. The other thing is playing mind games. And I did a live chat on this a couple of weeks ago. I'll post it as soon as we sign off. But mind games and wrongdoing tend to be the most common traits for the psychopathic family dynamic. Mind games keep you kind of off center, kind of causes you to stagger because you don't know which way you should go, what you should and should not say, what's going to trigger them or not. You're walking on eggshells is really what it is, guys. So wrongdoing is something that's common, right? Stealing, pathological lying, psychological manipulation, stalking, targeting you, minimizing you. All of that can be very destabilizing. And these are the challenges that you're going to see in your family. There's one term that I really like. And I was thinking of this on Tuesday before I posted my Tuesday video on this topic. I was thinking we need some way to bring to the forefront that these kind of individuals are predatory. They are predatory. They hunt. And when they find what they want, they pounce, right? So I like to call that a unified predatory unit. The family. All right. So the family, I'm going to say the psychopathic family, psychopathic, there we go. The psychopathic family can also be called a unified predatory unit. What in the world does that encompass? Well, what I just said a couple minutes ago, but here's what it is in broken down language. In that family system, these individuals are unified in that collective enabling, in that coalition, they are unified and they come against you. Excuse me. They come against you and they do it in a way that you don't see it happening right away. You just know you may feel emotionally and you may have some kind of internal intuition or sense that something is off in the relationship. Well, with a unified predatory unit, you've got the predators who are the psychopathic individuals within the family. It is very clear that they are. There's no question. And maybe in family therapy, it has been brought up that everybody carries a psychopathic trait within the family, right? So we're not just guessing here. for this example. So the family unit is predatory because of their psychopathic traits, and they are also unified. They come together in their way of being with other people. They are predators, and they come together to be predators. And that is scary, right? It can be unconscious or conscious as well. They may know that they are manipulative and predatory. And you may have some psychopathic family members who don't even know what they're doing at all, you know? But it's a unified predatory unit, the family system that has these traits of psychopathy. It's unified and it's predatory. And that's a sad thing. Research also suggests this, guys, before we get to the impact and back to the chat, and then we're going to wrap up. But research shows this, that most psychopathic families actually enjoy creating chaos. Isn't that interesting? They also view vulnerability as a weakness, and they spread that throughout the entire family. Don't cry. Don't let us see you cry. I had a family that came to see me before I went into my own practice. I was working in a group practice where the owner of the practice allowed me to be an independent contractor for her practice. And I would see a lot of her patients a week and, do assessments and consultations and things like that. I had a family that I'm so sorry I took on because dad was a complete psychopath. And here's what he would do. As soon as his son, who had an autism spectrum disorder that was undiagnosed, I ended up confirming that diagnosis from myself and my coworker. And I was telling dad at the session, I said, you know what? This kiddo has an autism spectrum disorder, as we all suspected. It is level 2, meaning that he's most likely going to need not substantial support, but he's going to need some supports to kind of help him, get the services that he needs. And dad's like, nodding and going along. And I remember saying to him, unfortunately, a lot of services for autism are not offered in your area. So you're going to have to travel outside of your rural space just to get him the right amount of services. Automatically, dad, he turned automatically into frustrated and hostile and mean and angry. And he says, there are no services out here for my kid. And I says, unfortunately, it's this practice and it's the practice down the road. And I think there's like a community center. He cut me right off mid-sentence. He says, you know what? You people amaze me. And I'm like, you people, wait a minute, what did I do? And I was kind of still a baby in understanding personality disorders and dynamics. So I was like, what is happening here? I didn't realize that it was some kind of like outburst, because he was narcissistic and thought the world was owed to him. But he says, you people amaze me. You claim to be people who want to help and do right by other people and help people's mental health. And he's screaming and yelling, and his wife is sitting there like kind of cringing, like, oh my God, we're going through this again, which showed me by her expression that he's abusive. And the baby, the child with autism, he's 7 years old, and he broke down in tears and he's crying and screaming, Daddy, stop yelling. Because what I was witnessing in that session was a reenactment of what happens when they are domestically fighting at home. But, he's saying, Dad, stop yelling. And he's crying. And here's my example. Here's my reasoning here. My point is, he looks at his son and he says, this is all your fault anyway. Nobody told you to be born with autism. And he's screaming and he's yelling. And I had to have my male coworker across the hall, come in. Please let us feel your male energy, because he's getting out of line here, even with the child, with me, wife. And my coworker says, you know what, you're going to have to leave. You're going to have to leave, And so he left and slammed the door and never came back. These are the scary components of a psychopathic family dynamic. Mom wasn't a psychopath. She was very, very dependent. Child had autism. And of course, dad was just a raving devil and lunatic for lack of a better term. So there's a lack of emotional attunement. I'm going to summarize what we just said. There's a lack of emotional attunement, meaning that there's a lack of togetherness when it comes to emotions and going through experiences and experiencing the same thing. There was dad who was yelling and screaming because technically he didn't like vulnerability. And a psychopathic family dynamic does not like vulnerability. They don't like vulnerability. They like getting under your skin. They like getting reactions. They like manipulating, right? They like cheating and deceiving, but they are not into being emotionally together with you. That's not quite what they want to do. So you're not going to get that. You're going to get that cold, callous, unemotional side of that person. And also too, in this category of just breaking down what the challenges are, you've got dominance that's in that dynamic. And sometimes the psychopathic parent runs with that dominance and they control everything, the money, the groceries, the clothes that are bought, everything. Intimidation is in there and coercive control. Okay, guys, what happens to you if you've grown up in a dynamic like that? Number one thing is loyalty conditioning. I'm going to put this in the chat box for you. Loyalty conditioning. Oh, goodness. I hit the wrong button. What did I do? Bear with me, guys. Hold on. I don't know what I did. What did I do? There we go. It's called loyalty conditioning. What is that? That's when your toxic, dysfunctional family tells you that family is everything while still abusing you and harming you and playing mind games and making you feel alone. Loyalty conditioning. You're conditioned. Think about how you condition your hair and shower, right? You're trying to get all the cuticles and all the layers and make sure it's, smooth through, right? Same thing with conditioning within the family dynamic. You have literally been conditioned to believe a particular way. And so loyalty conditioning says, you're not going to leave this family. You're not going to go without this family. You're not going to go no contact. You're going to stay with us and continue to be abused. So loyalty conditioning is you are loyal to the family and are not permitted, no matter your age, no matter your experience, no matter what you want, to be free of the family dynamic. Oh my goodness. Come on. My button's not working, guys. There we go. You are not permitted to be free of the family dynamic and must at all costs stick together. I hate that. I hate that so much. It's a beautiful thing when a loving, healthy family is together. I love it. I love it. And I love seeing those families as a therapist too. I have fun with them, in session and vice versa. But that is not the case for everybody. And so loyalty conditioning can sometimes keep you trapped, right? You may also notice a collapsed sense of identity within yourself. Collapsed, meaning you once had an identity. And maybe at one time you knew who you are, but you knew who you were, but dealing with a family dynamic that is psychopathic, cold, unemotional, and disengaged, or detached, it's going to affect you. So you may have a collapsed sense of identity. You don't really know who you are. You may also recognize within yourself some bits and pieces of just being angry and resentful towards authority. Because growing up under a psychopathic family dynamic, you had to really be like, some of the individuals from a concentration camp, right? Like you've had to really be on point and do what you're told and do what I'm telling you to do. So that you could survive, right? So you may have some anger and resentment towards authority. You may also have this within your family dynamic, the shared emotional numbing. I'll put it that way, the shared emotional numbing, where everybody within that family and everybody within that family dynamic is numb. And so you're sharing that emotional numbness amongst your siblings, you, grandparents, the list goes on, right? Depending on how big your family is and how touched they are. You may also have chronic invalidation happening in your mind all day, every day, all day, every day. What could be an example of chronic invalidation? You see your dad, you see your mom. They are both psychopaths. They are cold, callous, unemotional. They never show physical affection. You've never even seen them hug or kiss, right? You haven't seen them hold hands before. They don't seem to be the lovey-dovey type, right? They're not very physically expressive of how they feel. You just know the mom and dad were, acting as if they were leading a concentration camp, for lack of a clinical term. And so in this dynamic, you may feel unloved. You may not have the right words to even console yourself. And so in your mind, you may say, I hate myself. I hate that I feel this way, that I look this way. Why am I this way? Why can't I act better? I'm scum of the earth. I've disappointed myself so bad. I'm just going to give up. Who the heck cares? I'm a nobody. I can't think. I can't. And it goes on and on and on, right? And so chronic invalidation, it invalidates you over and over and over again, right? Isolation. Who wants to be a part of the world when their family has been the most burdensome social experience they have ever had? Who wants to be close to people, right? You may also notice this extreme self-doubt. You may not know what reality is because you haven't been given the opportunity to learn and grow in that area, because your psychopathic family dynamic kept you silent and afraid and timid, and you may also experience, this is the sad reality of it, paranoia and delusions. How long can you stay up under the pressure of a psychopathic family and not have something try to protect and save you? And that something is your brain. And sometimes what happens with the brain is, if you're traumatized repetitively or repeatedly, and you keep being emotionally and psychologically let down and harmed and targeted and beat up on, and your mind eventually can shut down. And then you start to experience persecutory delusions. You think people are out to get you. You think people are, stalking you or chasing you or looking for you, or cameras are hidden behind that picture on the wall. I had a client a couple of years ago. She had paranoid delusions, and she became paranoid right after her father died unexpectedly. Her mother died 2 months after that unexpectedly. Her son was hit by a car. He had a leg injury, so she had to caretake at the same time. And by the 6th month of the year, which would have been June for her, she was pregnant again. Marriage was on the rocks, and she's still grieving. And all of that, guys, interestingly, all of that pushed her over the edge. And so then she began believing people are chasing her and following her. She came to my office and said, you have cameras behind that picture. I said, what picture? You have right behind there. You have cameras. You're spying on me. I'm not spying on you. Yes, you are. Okay. Let's figure this out. Okay. And I get up. I go to the picture on my wall. I take it off the wall. Do you see cameras? No. My point exactly. Something is going wrong. Something is going wrong. And she says to me, but I don't know what it is. And so I referred her to a psychiatrist who could give her medication and do a deep dive. And he confirmed that her trauma of being raised in a psychopathic family dynamic, losing her family back to back, her parents, caretaking for her child, and trying to grieve, all encouraged, almost like a blooming flower, this paranoia and this delusional mindset. Guys, this is a lot. I feel like I've been talking for hours. This is a lot, right, guys? You're going to need to just soak this in and maybe rewatch and rewatch again. Because even for me, I wouldn't be able to condense this into a live chat hadn't I had professional personal experiences with this topic and worked in this area years ago, because there's so much to take in, the terms and, just all these different traits and everything. So come join me tomorrow, guys. We're going to talk about the golden child, the favorite child, and how that impacts the family dynamic, it's not just a psychopathic dynamic, right? Now we've got to introduce the golden child. So who's that sibling? Who's that family member that has cluster B traits, that's been tagged the favorite, that's been tagged the golden child? And how does that impact you over your life? So we're going to get into that. So if you want to know about that, come join me tomorrow, guys. All right, let me go to the chat box so we can wrap up. NGO, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back tonight. NGO says, you are literally describing my family to a T. I'm glad that it's relatable. You know, I feel so conflicted saying this. I'm glad it's relatable, but at the same time, I'm sorry, because nobody wants this dynamic, right? Nobody wants this dynamic. Honeybee says, heartbreaking because it's family. Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Right Life says, definition of love, it is an assignment of value. Yeah. Yeah, we can throw that in there for sure. Excuse me, guys. Excuse me. You know what? I heard my mom up there. She's watching. It's slipping me, but I hear it. The Peanuts. Who are those kids? Oh man, it almost came to me. Charlie Brown. And I should know, my mom, when I was 5, 6, 7, she literally painted my entire bedroom Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown. I had Snoopy. I had all of them. Linus. Oh my God. All right, guys. That was a side note just to kind of give you a mental break. But I can hear her watching it upstairs. That's one of the things about Charlie Brown. You could be a full-grown adult and still want to watch Charlie Brown. Because I'm getting ready to go do that, to be very honest. No, I'm kidding. Marina Life Animal, it's good to see you. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Marina says, most people in society still defend parents and don't want to accept that families can cause so much harm. Absolutely. It's a very ignorant, unlearned way of viewing the world, isn't it? Families can actually cause half of the damage, right, that the world can cause you. So you may feel damage that the world has caused you. Your family can cause damage as well, just as much as the outside world can. You know, we know that, but the world, not so much. So you're very much right on that. You're very much right on that. Ellie Wen says, it's a lonely, lonely, lonely road being in a family of haters. Understatement. Yeah, it is. I can imagine. I have tons of clients who are dealing with this. It's very depressing. James McDonald says, what is done in the dark always comes to light. I believe that. You think you're getting away with something? Because it's going to come out. You're not going to want the whole world to see it. AMB, I know that you in there. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. AMB says, this is my in-laws and I had to walk away. My husband wasn't a protector. He joined in. It damaged our relationship. Wow, that is awful. Now, if he's going to join in because he loves you and wants you to do the right thing and wants you to be healthy or see things a different way, that is a wonderful husband, right? Because he's supposed to be there to talk you out of those mental traps and emotional traps and family traps that you may find yourself in. But if he's on their side and ganging up against you, that is not a good thing. Then that is a dynamic that's unhealthy, right? Because he's your husband first, not their family members, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? He should be your husband first before he's anything to them, is what I'm trying to say. Lojo Han, you're welcome. You're welcome. I hope you're doing okay. Miss Janine, it's good to see you on the channel. Welcome back tonight. Miss Janine says, this sounds exactly like my family. I'm truly the only one who has on binoculars. Yeah, I know, me too. Those binoculars show you everything, don't they? Binoculars, and can see through and up close their enabling behavior that keeps me from completely growing up. Yeah, I totally understand. Totally understand. It's here's what's interesting. And Miss Janine, you probably can relate to this, that in a toxic family dynamic, in a dysfunctional family dynamic, in a psychopathic family dynamic, you've been raised from infancy in that dynamic. And it is a major piece of the puzzle when it comes to adulthood, when it comes to changing, growing, healing, the list goes on. Family serves such a big portion of the puzzle when it comes to what affects you. You know, I like to break it down for people with percentages, you know, so I'll say family serves as an example, as an educational experience, as an emotional experience, as psychological information. It serves all of those purposes in the life of a child, 50%. So 50, maybe even 60% family is crowding up the view of that child, right? Because you're constantly around family. The other 10% may be friends, right? And then the other 20% may be school. So you've got family, school, and social influences. And to me, family and school and environment, you know, fits into this puzzle when it comes to who you are and who you're going to be, right? So you've got a big piece of the puzzle that's family, and they're not treating you right, or they're enabling certain things, or they're going against you. It's going to destabilize and shake your maturity, your mind, your world. And that is simply because it plays such a big role in who we are as human beings, you know? Children who have been adopted sometimes have to grapple with that I am adopted by parents, but I also have a piece of me that's biological and genetically connected to somebody else that lives on this earth. And I've got to find who they are, you know? Doesn't mean that the adopted parents aren't anything or aren't important to the child, but it's that family piece of the puzzle, that biological and genetic connection that sometimes just impacts you, right? No matter what. And again, to your point, Miss Janine, they can definitely slow down progress if they are not healthy people, right? Lorfit says they are emotionally attached and will betray you with a smile. I would say emotionally detached, Lorfit. I would say they are emotionally detached, which is why they can betray you with a smile, right? Because they're cold, callous, and unemotional. Okay, let's keep moving, guys. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Tammy Nicely. Yep, you're right. You're right. Can you guys hear Charlie Brown up there? I'm having what is it? Nostalgic talks, memories of my childhood. All right, guys. Honeybee says, like they rewrite history based on their delusions. Mine aren't equipped to handle things, so they act out of fear inappropriately across boundaries, then deny the consequences. Yeah, definitely. Yep. Rewriting the narrative is something that they intentionally do, to be very honest. If you have a very narcissistic family dynamic or a very psychopathic family dynamic, both dynamics rewrite the narrative all the time. They either don't like the way it sounds, or they want to push things down, or, you know, kind of cause things to be forgotten. So, yeah. Yep. They very much do that indeed. Excuse me, guys. Okay. Jonathan, I'm going to go to you. Excuse me, guys. Jonathan Lomax says, hello and welcome to the channel. It's good to see you tonight. Glad you can make it as well. Jonathan says, glad I could make it tonight. You teach me so much about my upbringing. Now I realize the terror I was raised in. That's so awesome. And I'm so glad that you are able to kind of, you know, listen and watch videos on the channel here and say, wait a minute, that was me, or that was me when I was 5. You know what I mean? So that's really awesome to hear. And thank you so much for that. And I'm so glad this has been beneficial to you and to everybody else on the channel. Inverted Banana 5630. Hello, welcome. Good to see you tonight. And welcome to the channel. I don't remember seeing you. Inverted Banana says, avoiding conflict is the only way to survive when you are a minor. Avoid conflict, have a little bit of a, can I call them an alibi, like an adult who can speak for you? But for the most part, you're right. You just have to avoid that conflict, you know? Dimitri D. Am I saying that right? Dimitri D. All right, we're going to go with that. Forgive me if I mispronounced that. I'm so sorry. Dimitri D says, and welcome to the channel. I'm sorry, guys. I keep having a dry patch. I apologize for that. Dimitri D, it's good to see you. Welcome to the channel. I'm glad you could come tonight or be on the live. Dimitri says, the sad part is that we lost a lot of friends in that kind of triangulated, messy situation. They also engage in smear campaigns to discredit us. Stay strong, everyone. Well, that's kind of you. Thank you so much for that. And you're right. It just depends on what you're dealing with, right? Because you don't want to paint this picture that family is always like this, or, you know, that this is an experience that happens to everyone. But for the select few whose psychopathic family fits what we talked about tonight, you're right. They do tend to triangulate and make things messy, and they're, what's the word? They're obsessive. They are overly dramatic. You know, sometimes they're very theatrical. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. So if you come join me tomorrow, you will know exactly what we're talking about. Erica, you're welcome. You're welcome. And that's so awesome to hear. Thank you so much for that. And much love to you. You're always on here just being vocal in the chat box and with other people. And I love to see you guys interact in the chat box. So just know that I see you guys as well. I have my magnifying glass in the chat box. So, but you're very welcome. It is my pleasure to provide this service for sure. Yeah. Live Life 257. I think I know who you are. Screen name is a little bit different. Hello, my friend. Welcome back tonight. Says, I patted myself with extra weight. I don't know if I know what that means. Do you guys know what that means? Do you know what that means, guys? If I missed the whole point, forgive me. It is getting late. Part of that is my fatigue. I've had enough tonight. Axe Darlene Nikki. Hello, my friend. Welcome to tonight's live chat. It's good to have you live with us tonight. She says, oh my God, this was my life. Ugh. I'm so sorry. I hate that. Right? Because nobody wants to live in this, you know? Angela says, what's the difference between a psychopathic family and a narcissistic family? Well, that's going to be a whole new live chat, Angela, but let me just break it down a little bit for you. You want to keep in mind that a psychopath is an individual who has specific traits, right? And if you have a psychopathic family, it's everything that we talked about tonight. Narcissism is a little bit of a different quarter, right? It's a different elephant. There's, traits that are a little bit different. There is the mentality of family members are a little different when we're talking about a narcissistic family. There's a lot of pursuit of one particular goal. A psychopath kind of pursues a lot of different avenues because they are manipulative, they are cheaters, they're deceivers, they are sociable, charismatic, appealing, charming, has sex appeal, the list goes on. So psychopaths go after a lot. Narcissists, no, not so much. Sometimes they tend to go after one particular thing. I just want to feel powerful. I just want to feel enabled. I just want to feel in control. Or I want somebody to recognize all my good deeds because I'm a grandiose narcissist, or I want people to think that my depressed, dejected face says that I'm depressed when in all actuality, in my heart, I'm grandiose. But I'm doing this because I want you to think I'm humble. What is my goal? To gain dominance over the family, to get that relationship so I can marry that person, to deceive so I can get that, so that I can get that, and then I'll be there. Right. So kind of think of it in that sense. Psychopath has their traits. Narcissism is a little bit different. Psychopaths go after a variety of things. Narcissists go after one specific thing. So in other words, their goals are well known. Psychopath, you may not know which direction they're going, right? Narcissist, a little bit different. That's all I'm going to say on that, because if I keep talking, we're going to open up another live chat. We don't want to do that tonight. My Journey to Truth. I love that screen name. Hello and welcome to the channel. It's good to have you. My Journey to Truth says my parents are 72 going on 16. Now that you say that, oh, that is hilarious. Okay, so there is some research to back up the reality that a psychopathic family dynamic, if you have psychopathic parents, okay, and it's kind of been proven that they are antisocial, they have an antisocial personality disorder, age typically helps that person to become less antisocial. Does that make sense? Like they become less of a psychopath and sociopath in some cases the older they get. You know, it's almost like they mellow out, you know? But there's also some opposing research that says that they could actually get worse. So if your 72-year-old, you know, parents are going on age 16 and you believe they're psychopaths, then that's right up there with the research. You know what I mean? So just throwing that out there. That's a mess though. I love that so much because some elderly people really are 16 or 5. I've been around plenty of them. All right. Still Prill. Hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. We're going to sign off here in just a little bit, but it's good to have you. Still Prill says, I'm the scapegoat of my dad's family. And I think I'm the lost child on my mom's side. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm so glad you brought that up because that is something I could have mentioned earlier, that you could be one role on one side of the family and another role on another side of the family. We're not going to get into it, but I'm so glad that you brought that up. I'm going to star that comment. And I'm sorry that you have to deal with that dynamic. It's not an easy one. JKL Pop 4664. Hello, my friend. Welcome to tonight's live chat. I remember you. You're welcome. So glad that this was helpful. At least I hope it was helpful to you. All right, guys, we got to wrap up. We're like close to almost an hour and a half. Jeez Louise. Fairy girl, I'm going to put your comment up here. I'm going to put your comment up there so people can see it. Okay. I feel bad because I want to read the rest of your comments, but we have to sign off. Let me read Torkit. Can I say torqued? I want to say torqued. Hello, my friend. Welcome to tonight's live chat. I know exactly who you are. I remember your screen name picture. That helps me out a lot too. Torqued says, isn't it so cold too early this year where you are in PA? Here in Montreal, Canada, the snow came too early this year. It's like below 20 outside. Ouch. Yeah, it is really cold. But let me say, tonight is supposed to go down to 11. Okay. It's supposed to go down to 11 degrees. So I think we beat you on that one. I think we beat you. The Good Glow 520. It's good to see you. Welcome back. Glad you can meet us tonight and still be here. Awesome. All right. I'm just going to scroll one more time. Thank you so much, Lil Johan. I appreciate you. You guys are so sweet. You don't have to, but I love when you do. Thank you so much for that. That's so sweet. I appreciate you. Christine Powell. Hello. I'm not going to say goodnight without saying hello to you. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Okay. Let's stop here, guys. For those of you who have given in the past or tonight, super chats, memberships. I saw Fairy Girl, you gifted 10 people with a membership. Thank you so much for that. It's so kind. There are a few people who have posted comments saying thank you for the memberships. And I will post them as soon as I can. I've been so busy, but I'm going to post them so that you guys can see that other people on the channel are so grateful for you. So thank you for that. You guys are showing and proving that even though these are bad situations, and even though you can emerge from a very toxic family dynamic that's dysfunctional and harmful, that there can still be kindness of heart. And you guys are an example of that. So guys, have a wonderful Friday night. I hope to see you tomorrow. Okay. Good night, guys.